Will we ever know who Jack the Ripper was? The short answer is almost certainly no. It's a frustrating answer, but it's the most honest one. The trail didn't just go cold, it evaporated more than a century ago. The physical evidence is gone. The witnesses are long dead. The city he terrorized has been rebuilt over and over. What we're left with is a story, a collection of brittle police reports, sensational newspaper clippings, and a handful of suspects who all seem plausible but never quite fit perfectly. The case isn't just a mystery, it's a black hole in criminal history. The reason we can't solve it isn't because we aren't smart enough. It's because the time for solving it has passed, the materials are gone. To understand why, you have to go back to 1888. Forget everything you know about modern crime solving. Forget DNA, fingerprinting, criminal profiling, and databases. None of that existed. The world Jack the Ripper operated in was a world of gaslight, fog, and shadows, and the tools to catch him were almost as primitive as the crimes were brutal. The place was Whitechapel, in London's East End. It wasn't just a poor neighborhood. It was a labyrinth of poverty. The streets were narrow, unlit, and confusing. Thousands of people were crammed into slum housing, often sleeping a dozen to a room. It was a transient place. People came and went constantly, without records, without a trace. It was a place where you could disappear easily, either as a victim or as a... The police who patrolled these streets were walking a beat in a foreign country. They were outnumbered and often viewed with suspicion by the locals. This was the killer's hunting ground. He couldn't have picked a better one. He could strike and then simply melt back into the crowd, swallowed by the darkness and the anonymity of the slums. Then there's the investigation itself. When a murder happened, the scene was chaos. The first person to find the body would scream, and soon a crowd would gather. People would trample all over the area, touching things, moving things, destroying any potential evidence before the police even arrived. And when the police did get there, what were they looking for? They didn't know to look for fingerprints, because the science didn't exist yet. They didn't know about microscopic fibers or soil samples. They looked for obvious things, a weapon, a footprint in the mud, a blood trail. The Ripper left them almost nothing. He took his knife with him, he left no clear prints. He was, by all accounts, a ghost. The police were overwhelmed, they conducted thousands of interviews. They followed up on hundreds of leads, but they were chasing shadows. Eyewitness accounts were a mess. They were contradictory and vague. Some said he looked like a foreigner, others said he was well dressed, like a gentleman. Some said he was short, others tall. It was dark. People were scared. Memory is unreliable at the best of times, and these were the worst of times. The police were trying to assemble a puzzle, but all the pieces were from different boxes. And the victims themselves tell a part of the story. The 5 women most commonly attributed to the Ripper, the canonical 5, were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. They lived on the absolute margins of society. They were poor, they struggled with alcohol, and they often sold themselves for the price of a bed for the night. This made them vulnerable. They were easy targets. They would go with a stranger into a dark alley or a dingy room without a second thought, because it was part of their survival. The killer exploited this vulnerability with terrifying efficiency. He could get close to them without a struggle. The nature of the murders also points to why he was so hard to catch. They were fast. The medical examiners at the time estimated that he could kill and mutilate a victim in just a few minutes. He would strangle or cut the throat first, ensuring silence, and then perform his grim work. He operated in the tiny window of time between police patrols, often in public or semi-public places. The murder of Catherine Eddowes, for example, happened in Mitre Square, a place that was patrolled by a constable every 15 minutes. The killer got in, did his work, and got out all within that quarter hour. This suggests a man who was bold, confident, and perhaps knew the area's geography and police schedules intimately. Or maybe he was just incredibly lucky. Then there was the media. The Ripper case was arguably the world's first modern media frenzy. Your newspapers competed with each other for the most gruesome details and the most shocking headlines. This had 2 major effects. First, it created mass hysteria. The public was terrified and angry, putting immense pressure on the police to make an arrest. Any arrest. This pressure can lead to mistakes and rushed judgments. Second, the media frenzy polluted the investigation. It generated thousands of tips, letters, and theories from the public. Most of it was useless noise. The famous Jack the Ripper letters are a perfect example. The Dear Boss letter, in which the name Jack the Ripper first appeared, was sent to a news agency. So was the Saucy Jackie postcard. And the From Hell letter, which came with a piece of a human kidney, was sent to the head of a neighborhood watch group. Were any of them actually from the killer? Most experts today believe the Earboss letter and the postcard were hoaxes, possibly written by a journalist to sell more papers. The From Hell letter is more debated, but its authenticity can never be proven. These letters turned the killer into a bogeyman, a theatrical villain, but they also sent the police on wild goose chases, trying to analyze handwriting and track down authors who probably had nothing to do with the crimes. So, you have a perfect storm, a perfect hunting ground, no forensic tools, unreliable witnesses, a killer who was terrifyingly efficient, and a media frenzy that muddied the waters. This is the foundation of why the case remains unsolved. The basic building blocks of a solution were never there to begin with. Over the years, this lack of a clear answer has created a vacuum, and that vacuum has been filled with suspects. The list of potential rippers is long and varied, and this is where the modern fascination really lies. It's a great historical whodunit. Each suspect has a story, and each has tantalizing clues that point in their direction, but none of them have a smoking gun. Let's look at the main contenders. There's Montague John Druitt. He was a barrister and schoolteacher who was found drowned in the River Thames in December 1888, not long after the last of the canonical murder. His own family supposedly suspected him. The timing of his death is compelling. Did the killer commit suicide? It's a neat way to wrap up the story, but the evidence against him is purely circumstantial. There is nothing directly linking him to Whitechapel or the victims. He lived miles away. His suicide note spoke of his own troubles and being fired from his job, with no mention of any dark secret. He became a suspect largely because a high-ranking police officer, Sir Melville Macnaghten, named him in a private memo written years after the fact. Macnaghten's reasoning was flimsy, but the idea of the well-to-do man with a dark secret was too good a story to let go. Then you have Aaron Kosminski. He was a Polish Jewish hairdresser who lived in Whitechapel and worked in the heart of the murder district. He suffered from severe mental illness, had a known hatred of women, and was eventually committed to an asylum. He was another of Macnaghten's preferred suspects. For a long time, Kosminski was just one name on a long list, but recently he's become the focus of intense debate because of something new DNA evidence. A shawl, said to have been found near the body of Catherine Eddowes, has been the subject of modern scientific testing. In 2014, a book was published claiming that mitochondrial DNA found on the shawl matched both a descendant of Eddowes and a descendant of Kosminski's sister. This sounded like the bombshell everyone had been waiting for. The case was solved. But it's not that simple. The story of the shawl is a problem. Its history or provenance is murky. Can we be sure it was actually at the crime scene? It was never logged as evidence. It was passed down through a policeman's family for generations. Over that time, it was handled by countless people. The DNA could be from anyone, it could be contaminated. Furthermore, mitochondrial DNA isn't like a fingerprint. It can trace a family line, but is shared by thousands of people. The scientific community has largely dismissed the shawl evidence as unreliable. It's a fascinating attempt to apply modern science to an old crime, but it's not the definitive proof it was claimed to be. Another popular suspect from the era was a man named Seweryn Klosowski, who went by the alias George Chapman. He was also a Polish immigrant who lived in Whitechapel during the murders. Inspector Frederick Aberline, one of the lead investigators on the case, was convinced Chapman was the Ripper. The reason? After the Ripper murders stopped, Chapman went on to poison 3 of his wives. He was a proven serial killer with a deep-seated hatred of women. He looked the part, but his method was completely different. The Ripper was a man of rage and the knife. Chapman was a cold, calculating poisoner. It's rare for a killer's method, their MO, to change so dramatically. It's possible, but it makes him a less likely fit. The list goes on. There's Dr. Francis Tumblety, a shady American quack doctor who was in London at the time. He was arrested on an unrelated charge, but fled the country. He reportedly hated women and had a collection of anatomical specimens, including uteri, in jars. The story is sensational, but the evidence linking him to the murders is thin, based mostly on rumor and hearsay from unreliable sources. More recently, the artist Walter Sickert has been put forward as a suspect, most famously by the crime novelist Patricia Cornwell. She has spent millions of her own money trying to prove her case. She claims that DNA from stamps on letters supposedly sent by the Ripper matches DNA on stamps used by Sickert. She also points to his paintings, suggesting they contain macabre clues and depictions of the murder scenes. But again, the evidence is highly contested. The DNA is mitochondrial and its sourcing is controversial. Most art historians and Ripper experts believe the connections are coincidental or are being misinterpreted. The theory remains on the fringe. There are dozens of others: James Maybrick, a Liverpool cotton merchant whose wife poisoned him, A diary, supposedly written by him and confessing to the Ripper murders, surfaced in the 1990s. It was later exposed as a modern forgery. Michael Ostrog, a Russian con man and thief. Karl Feigenbaum, a German sailor executed in New York for murder. The list is a testament to the case's ambiguity. You can make a plausible, if circumstantial, case against many people, but that's all it is, circumstantial. This brings us back to the central question. If we have new technology like DNA analysis, why can't we solve it? The problem is that technology needs something to work with. To get a definitive DNA match, you need a clean, uncontaminated sample of the killer's DNA from a crime scene. And you need the suspect's DNA to compare it to. We have neither. There is no confirmed Ripper DNA. Anything we have, like the shawl, has a broken chain of custody and is hopelessly contaminated. And even if we had the killer's DNA, who would we compare it to? We would have to exhume every plausible suspect and hope to get a viable sample from their century-old remains. It's a logistical and ethical nightmare, and it would likely lead nowhere. So, the old evidence is gone or degraded. The new evidence is unreliable. The witnesses are gone. We are left with nothing but shadows and stories. Will we ever know? No. A long-lost letter could turn up. A forgotten police file could be discovered in a dusty attic, but it's highly unlikely that any such discovery would contain the kind of definitive proof needed to close the case. It would just be another piece of circumstantial evidence, another chapter in the story, another theory for people to debate. The truth is, the identity of Jack the Ripper is no longer a solvable police case. It has become something else. It has become a myth. He was the first celebrity serial killer, a faceless monster who terrorized a great city and then vanished. He is more of an idea than a person now. He represents the darkness that can exist just beneath the surface of society, the terrifying thought that a man can commit unspeakable acts and simply walk away, never to be caught. He is a blank slate onto which we can project our own fears. Was he a doctor with twisted knowledge, a poor butcher driven mad, or a wealthy gentleman hiding a monstrous secret? We can make him into whatever we want him to be because we don't know. And maybe, in a strange way, that's why the story endures. If we knew who he was, the story would be over. He would just be Aaron Kosminski, the mentally ill hairdresser, or George Chapman, the wife poisoner. He would be reduced to a pathetic, sad human being. The mystery would be gone. But as a nameless phantom, he remains terrifying. He is forever at large, a symbol of a crime that was and is unsolvable. The lack of an answer is what makes the story so powerful. It forces us to accept that some questions just don't have answers. Some darkness is never brought into the light. The case isn't just unsolved. It's fundamentally unsolvable, and that, more than anything else, is why we will never stop talking about Jack the Ripper. The not knowing is the whole point now.